That's Rod Serling introducing an episode of The Twilight Zone more than half a century ago. Starting tomorrow, the show is back in an all-new series on CBS All Access.
What if a single Twilight Zone episode was so controversial, it vanished for over 50 years, banned, buried, and nearly forgotten? Now, after 5 decades in the dark, the encounter is finally back. Why was it silenced? What truth was too dangerous to air? This isn't just lost television. It's a story of war, guilt, censorship, and a nation afraid to face its past. And today, the world is finally ready. Hit play, because you're about to uncover the episode they never wanted you to see. Welcome back to the Twilight Zone. Before we dive into the controversy, we need to understand the mind behind it all. Rod Serling. Born on December 25, 1924, in Binghamton, New York, Serling was always drawn to storytelling. As a child, he would stage plays in his basement for friends and family. In high school, he wrote for the school newspaper and developed a reputation for social activism. But it was World War II that truly shaped him. Serling served in the Philippines, hoping to fight in Europe, but instead facing brutal jungle warfare. He earned the Bronze Star, the Purple Heart, and the Philippine Liberation Medal. But what he brought home weren't just medals. He brought nightmares, memories of death, of bloodshed, of a fellow soldier being decapitated by a falling crate. That horror never left him. After the war, Serling turned to writing to cope. He attended college and earned a degree in literature while performing in radio dramas. He even tested parachutes and jet ejection seats for extra money, one of which had previously killed 3 testers. That daredevil spirit, combined with his war trauma, forged a writer unafraid to confront the darkest corners of the human soul. And that's exactly what he did with The Twilight Zone, which premiered on CBS on October 2, 1959. Unlike anything else on TV, The Twilight Zone didn't follow a single storyline or cast. It was an anthology. Each week a new story, a new message, a new descent into fear, irony, or reflection. It used science fiction, fantasy, and suspense as camouflage to critique real-world issues: racism, paranoia, war, and authoritarianism. At a time when McCarthyism and Cold War hysteria gripped America, Serling used time travel and aliens to slip truths past network censors. He knew people wouldn't tolerate stories about civil rights if told directly, but dress it up in Martian makeup or set it in a parallel dimension. And suddenly, they listened. But even The Twilight Zone had its limits. CBS executives grew wary of Serling's political tone. Ratings, though consistent, weren't stellar. Sponsors occasionally pulled out. And then, in 1964, came the episode that finally crossed an invisible line: The Encounter. Originally aired on May 1, 1964, The Encounter featured just 2 characters: Neville Brand as Fenton, a bitter World War II veteran, and George Takei, in one of his earliest TV roles, as Arthur Takamori, a Japanese-American man. The entire story takes place in an attic. It begins simply: Fenton offers Arthur a beer. They talk. But beneath the small talk simmers decades of buried rage and trauma. Fenton shows off a samurai sword he took from a Japanese soldier he killed in the war. Arthur, strangely drawn to the sword, confesses his real name is Taro and drops the bombshell. His father, he says, was a spy who helped plan the attack on Pearl Harbor. Tension mounts. The sword seems to take on a life of its own. Fenton grows suspicious, paranoid that Arthur came for revenge. Arthur grows unstable, muttering that the sword wants blood. Eventually, Fenton falls on the blade. Arthur, in a daze, jumps out the attic window to his death. No monsters, no supernatural twist. Just 2 broken men, trapped in a room, destroyed by the past. Viewers were stunned, but not in a good way. The country, in 1964, wasn't ready to confront its own wartime sins, especially not on primetime television. So CBS buried the episode. It was pulled from reruns, skipped on DVD box sets, absent from streaming. For 52 years, the encounter was all but erased. What made this erasure even more tragic was the story behind the actor who played Arthur. George Takei, known today as Mr. Sulu on Star Trek, wasn't just acting. He had lived it. At just 5 years old, Takei and his family were sent to the Rower Relocation Center in Arkansas, one of 10 U.S. internment camps created during World War II. They were imprisoned without charge, without trial, simply for being Japanese American. Takei would later become a powerful voice for civil rights and historical memory. But in 1964, he played a character who might have internalized that same shame and guilt. Whether Arthur's claim about his father being a spy was literal or symbolic didn't matter. The damage was done. It blurred lines people weren't ready to face. The encounter didn't give viewers a villain or a hero. Fenton was no noble war vet. He was unstable, possibly murderous. Arthur wasn't just a victim. His bitterness made him dangerous. They were both scarred, both tragic, both caught in a loop of inherited trauma. The attic wasn't just a setting. It was a symbol of America's emotional attic, where uncomfortable truths are boxed away and forgotten until they explode. Then, in 2016, something incredible happened. The Sci-Fi Channel, during a Twilight Zone New Year's Eve marathon, aired The Encounter for the first time since 1964. No edits, no disclaimers, just raw television, resurrected. And in 2025, the episode is returning again, this time with wider release. But why now? Because now, more than ever, we understand what this episode was trying to say. In recent years, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, the United States has seen a disturbing rise in anti-Asian hate crimes. Elderly men attacked, women harassed on subways, citizens told to go back to China. Sound familiar? The paranoia of Fenton, the suppressed rage of Arthur. These are not just ghosts of the past. They're reflections of the present. The attic isn't just a relic, it's a mirror. And the sword? It's trauma passed down like an heirloom. The burden of history, a symbol of violence that infects every generation until someone finally chooses to confront it. That's what the Twilight Zone did best. It didn't offer easy answers. It made us sit with contradictions. It made us uncomfortable, for a reason. Rod Serling once said his job as a writer had become the art of self-censorship. He had to trick networks into allowing social commentary by dressing it up as fiction. But even that failed when it came to The Encounter. And eventually, Serling walked away. After The Twilight Zone was canceled in 1964, following 5 seasons and 156 episodes, Serling didn't fight the network decision. He was exhausted, disillusioned. He sold the rights to CBS and moved on. But the show's legacy never died. In 2019, Jordan Peele revived The Twilight Zone for a new generation. In 2025, Dan Waters is launching a new comic series, and Ben Stiller is developing a film inspired by the show. These creators are following in Serling's footsteps, not just telling scary stories, but asking dangerous questions. Because that's what The Twilight Zone was always about. And that's why The Encounter matters now more than ever. If this story left you thinking, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments. We share the truth behind the screen, one story at a time. Because some shadows aren't fiction, they're reflections. Stay curious. Thanks for watching.